Welcome back, friends. We missed a week. Life just got in the way. There's really no other explanation than that. We just kind of got busy, but we're glad that you're with us today.
I'm going to blame it on my district superintendent because he scheduled a charge conference.
Yeah, those charge conference things get in the way of...
I'm going to blame him.
Yeah.
It really wasn't his fault, but I'm going to blame him anyway.
Right. We'll come up with reasonable excuses for us not to take the blame that we probably deserve. But it is November 14th. It is a Wednesday. We are delighted that you've joined us today, and we're going to...
You just said it was November 14th. I think we're doing
November 8th. I meant we're talking about Genesis 14 today.
Yes.
So, hey, my mind works like that. But
thanks for hanging with us, by the way.
Yeah. So at Denver United Methodist Church and Huntersville United Methodist Church, it is the season of stewardship.
And I know everyone's excited about that.
I know attendance will
probably
quadruple this week because of that.
Well, one of the things I pondered this week was, if I told my congregation Warren Buffett's coming to town and he's going to talk to you on Sunday morning, how many people do you think would show up?
I think we'd have a good crowd.
You wouldn't be able to put the people in the church. And so, but why is that? Why can't I draw the same crowd that Warren Buffett does?
Well, I know Warren Buffett, and you know Warren Buffett. Actually, I don't know Warren Buffett.
No, you don't know Warren Buffett, because if you did, you'd be giving him a pledge card.
That's right. Mr. Buffett, here's your
But I think about
card.
that. I think, it gets, and again, he seems like a perfectly good guy, and actually, but he's a billionaire. But I think it goes to kind of the heart of what do we really value in our society. We can lift up all kinds of things and say, this is what I'm about, that's what I'm about. But one of the things we have to deal with is we often value money and what money can do above all else, if we're honest.
Yeah, I think when we start approaching stewardship, we often have to acknowledge that first and foremost, as I'm fond of saying in Disciple Bible Study, idolatry is at the root of all sinfulness. Idolatry really is the root of every sin. And certainly the love of money, that we equate money with security, means that we rely more on our financial situation than we do on God, which is the very essence of idolatry.
Which also creates a lot of anxiety, because very few of us feel like our financial situation is secure. And that's across the board. And if you ask, one of a great survey question I saw not long ago was, people were asked, how much more money would you need to make to feel secure? And most people responded, about 15% more. Whether they made $40,000 or $80,000 or $160,000 or $200,000, they all felt like they needed more to feel secure.
About 15% more, and obviously the more my family has increased, and obviously usually the older you get, a little more money you make. We can state quite honestly that there is no amount of money. It doesn't matter if you even make Warren Buffett money, that money never equates to security.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't equate to well-being. Now, money is a tool. It does things for us. But part of what we want to do in stewardship is to put money in the right perspective, to put it in the right place. And because when we get our lives disordered is when things don't go well.
Yeah, I'm also fond of saying that if God is in the right place in our order of priorities, everything else will flow into the right place after that. But when God is not in the right spot in the priority, there is no matter anything, it will never add up to safety, security, to peace.
So what we want to do is have a theological conversation about money. Don't get spooked by that word theological. If you and I can talk theology, anybody can talk theology. It just means, at the heart of it, theo, the Latin word for God, Greek word for God too, I believe, is in there. But the study of God, the understanding of God, how do you discuss this from a perspective that is deeply rooted in God? So when we have a proper theological underpinning of resources, then it enables us to live into a life not of scarcity, because that's where most of us are, That's the messaging we receive all the time. You don't have enough. You don't have enough. You don't have enough. If you just get a little more, then you'll be satisfied. Well, that's the myth. So we want to talk about moving from the concept of scarcity to the concept of abundance, and abundance can only come from God.
So it literally begins in the very first words of the very first chapter of the very first book of the Bible. In the beginning, God created. Steve, talk to us for a moment about how the understanding of God as creator, as God as sustainer, as God as the source of life truly is the beginning of our theological understanding of stewardship, of generosity, all of that.
Well, God's the origin of all things. God gives creation life. He brings it into being, which then means that this all belongs to God. And I think, and that's something we forget. We have such a deep understanding of ownership that it drives us crazy. What if we develop this idea of stewardship, which means we're caretakers, not owners? Then we can begin to release some of these things back to God.
In the two creation narratives in the book of Genesis, first creation narrative in Genesis chapter 1, the second creation narrative in chapter 2, you have this first in Genesis 1, this beautiful poem, in the beginning when God created and God looked and God saw that it was good. It's this poetry, it's this narrative through poetry in which it sets out that God in this orderly fashion created all that there is. And we see that it is good. We often ask this question, is there anything that God failed to make enough of? Is there something that God, okay, you came up short on that, God, you didn't quite make enough of that. And the reality is God made this perfect world. It is a world that has enough food, it has enough water, it has enough air, it has the right temperatures, it has everything. God has created this beautiful world that literally has everything that we need. And the theology says then in Genesis 1, 2, and chapter 3, take that then. Human beings, I've created you, not just good, but very good, and has given us this beautiful stewardship of this creation and says, now you go be fruitful, abundant, multiply, subdue, or provide dominion over the earth, but caretake the earth.
And we struggle with that.
Because we want to hold on too tightly to what, quote, is ours rather than seeing everything as God's.
And it makes a huge difference. That little shift in perspective of I'm a part of creation and I have a role to care for creation and that God owns this. I think this idea that we hey, I think about how many of our laws deal with property. Deal with possession, deal with what's mine and what's not yours. It's really overwhelming. I think just about when you buy a house, how many pieces of paper you sign. So much of our legal system's all built around that we miss this idea that again, God is the one who provided. I'm simply taking care of what God has given to me to take care of myself, certainly, take care of my family, but also to take care of others.
So bound up together in that whole theology of giving, of gratitude, is this idea of stewardship. Environmental stewardship, I think, is a part of that. Certainly, I am more mindful today, and I had a great friend, Bob Roach, who many of you know, when recycling wasn't even cool, when it wasn't even a thing. Bob Roach was recycling, and I just watched Bob and took that as one small lesson, one person doing one small thing that he thought was important in terms of the way he understood God, the way he understood his place in God's creation. And I've often thought about how that really is how life should be lived. Each of us does our small part, our one small thing in this grand plan of God's. But when we all understand our proper place together, connected with each other, connected to God, then we really do have a We have a theology of stewardship. We have a theology of creation. We have a theology of gratitude.
So when I need to borrow your truck, you won't give me a hard time again?
When you need to borrow my truck, brother, you know you're golden there. We hope we got a conversation started in your heart today. We're at our 10-minute mark.
Yeah,
we
so-
try not to go
so-
too much over that.
Yeah, so come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about a character who shows up on the scene in Genesis and has a very brief appearance but has a lasting impact. So look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us.